Hey there, Stampers. Welcome to the April 2025 Global Stampin' Video Hop, where our theme this month is new. So we are focusing on some brand new products because we are the brand new annual Stampin' Up catalog is right around the corner. So I am choosing to focus on the 5 new in colors that Stampin' Up is releasing this year. Every year they release 5 new in colors, and that's kind of their way to keep up with trends. So these are the 5 new in colors, and we'll talk a little bit more about them towards the end of this video. We are going to focus on this color, which is Secret Sea. This is what I'll be using in the video, and then I will introduce the other 4 colors to you afterwards. And we are going to use a new bundle as well. This is an online exclusive bundle that will be available beginning May 6th. It's called Impressions Abloom, and it is a beautiful bundle. What initially drew me to this bundle is the large kind of chunky ovals, and I love the simplicity of the flowers. I'm not a huge flower person, but when I am drawn to flowers, they tend to be a little bit more on the simple side rather than detailed flowers, and so this just jumped out at me. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, we are going to create a card using this beautiful Secret Sea in color. Now, if you aren't familiar with the Global Stampin' Video Hop, there are several of us Stampin' Up demonstrators across the world that participated in it every month, and we have a theme every month, and in the description of each video you'll find the link to the participants. So we encourage you to hop along and see how everybody interpreted that month's theme. Okay, so I've got my card base, which is a piece of Secret Sea, just a standard size card base, 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. I've got another piece of Secret Sea here that I have taken. This measures 4 inches across by 5 1/4 down, and I've taken this chunky oval and I've die cut it from the center, and then I've used the exposed brick embossing folder to add a little bit of texture. Okay, so that's going to go on there. And then I've got 2 pieces of white. One is going to be for the inside, so this measures 4 by 5 1/4, and then this one is just slightly smaller. You just want it slightly smaller than this, so I think I have it maybe 3 3/4 by 5. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to kind of position this on here. I'm not going to stick it down just yet. Just kind of center it. It doesn't have to be fully centered. You just need to make sure that you can't see it around the edges. And then I'm going to take a pencil and just very lightly go around the edges. Okay, so that will give me an idea where I need my stamping to be. Okay, now I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to bring in my stamps. So I am going to use this largest flower. Now this is a 2-step stamp. I'll share a couple tips on stamping those. I'm going to use this large flower center, and I'm going to use this leaf. So these 2 leaves, this is a 2-step stamp as well as this, but we're only going to use this one, and then we'll do the 2-step for the flower. Okay. All right, so let's start. Now I find it easier to stamp the detailed image first, because the detailed image tends to be darker than the solid image. So I'm going to do my detailed image, and I'm going to stamp it on here twice. Let's rotate it around a little bit and stamp it there. So you can see it overlaps the oval a little bit. And then I'm going to do the inside as well. So we'll stamp a little flower on the inside. And then we're going to stamp one on some scrap paper. So this is just some scrap white cardstock. Now we're going to bring in a scrap piece of paper, and I've got my solid image. I'm going to ink it up, stamp it off, and then what I encourage you to do is look for a distinguishing petal. So for me, it's this thin petal. It's kind of on its own. It's not joined up with the rest. There are 2 that are like that, but one is a little chunkier, one's a little bit narrower. So that one lines up with this one. So it's not joined with the rest and it's thinner. So I start with that and I line that one up and then make sure that the rest of the petals are lined up, and then stamp it down. And then I'll just repeat that process. So again, here's that thin one. So I'm just going to rotate that around, making sure that the other flower or petals are lined up. And look how beautiful that is. And it's so simple. Okay, now we're going to bring this one in. This is the one that's going to get die cut. So again, I'm looking for that distinguishing petal. And then we'll do the inside. There we go. Okay, so we're done with that. And actually, while we've got this color out, we're going to take the greeting that says thanks, ink that up, and just make sure this is straight. And I'm going to kind of stamp this right up there. Okay, so we're done with Secret Sea, this beautiful dark blue color. All right, now we're going to bring in some pecan pie. We can put this away. We're done with that. We're going to do our flower centers. So I'm just going to stamp this in the center, and you can two-step stamp this if you want, but I quite like it with just the detailed stamp. All right, and then we're done with pecan pie. Now we're going to bring in some old olive, and we're going to add in some leaves. So I've got my leaf stamp, and I'm going to do a couple. And I find this one, you don't really need to add the inside because it's got, let me bring this up a little closer. It's got that detail in there. So I find that it doesn't really need that inside image to color it in. We'll add a couple to our inside. And then on this piece, we're going to stamp 3 of them that we will die cut. Okay, so all of our stamping is done now. So far we've used the cardstock and the ink that coordinates, and we will be using a Stampin' Write marker that coordinates as well. And then there are some embellishments, and then when the catalog releases, there will be some ribbon and some Stampin' blends that match all of these colors as well. Okay, so now we're going to take the dies and we're going to die cut them. Again, what I encourage you to do is take a look on the die for that distinguishing petal. So this is it here. It's a little bit thinner and it kind of stands apart. So that's the one that you're going to line up, and then just use a little bit of washi tape to hold it in place and then feed it through. And then you'll use this die here to die cut your leaves. And I've gone ahead and die cut all of those just to speed this up a little bit. Let's put that back on there. Okay. All right, so we've got all of our pieces now. We're ready to start assembling. So I'm going to take a little bit of adhesive. I'm going to use some multi-purpose glue that I just have in a fine tip bottle, and I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. This multi-purpose glue is really good. You don't need to add a lot. It adheres very nicely. And then I'm going to flip this over. Let's just make sure I've got this going the right way. Line this up so it's kind of in the center, but then before I stick it down, I'm just going to flip it back over because I want to make sure that that oval lines up. You can erase your pencil marks, but I did them so fine that it's really not going to matter. Nobody's going to notice them. All right, so we've got that. Then this is going to get adhered to our card front. so that we have about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. And then we can adhere our inside layer. Okay, and I've got a piece of white baker's twine that I've tied in a bow with some big loops. And I'm just going to add a little dot of multi-purpose glue right here and add that on here like that. And I'm going to take my bone folder, kind of curl these up just a little bit just to give them a bit more dimension. And then we'll take a dimensional, and I'm going to put a dimensional on both sides of this. That will hold that bow in place and also make my flower nice and sturdy. And then this is going to go on here so that we've got a little bit more dimension on our card. And then we'll take our bone folder and curl up these leaves. And then these are just going to kind of get tucked in. Add a little bit of glue there, and then I'm going to tuck right in there. Add another one, and again, tuck right in here, just being mindful to not have it hang off the edge. You want it to slide nicely into an envelope. And then we'll take this one and slide this one underneath here. And then we're going to finish it off by taking our Stampin' Up marker. These are a water-based marker, and we're going to use the bullet tip. And we're just going to add some little trios of dots in a few different spots. And then on the inside as well. Let me bring that up so that you can take a look. And there we go. So there is our first new in color. This is called Secret Sea. Excuse me. And if we compare it with some of the other darker blues that we've had in the past, so here's Misty Moonlight, Blueberry Bushel, Orchid Oasis, Starry Sky, Night of Navy, and Secret Sea. So you can see it's very different from all of those colors. Let me just bring this one up so you can see the difference. So it's almost like a black blue, like a midnight blue, I would say. All right, so that is the first in color. And then we've got Strawberry Slush, which if you guys have been with Stampin' Up for a while, this is a color that we did carry at one time. So here's Flirty Flamingo, Rococo Rose, Polished Pink, Strawberry Slush, Magenta Madness, Melon Mambo, and Berry Burst. So again, quite different from those. Even this one, there is quite a difference. Okay, and then we'll move on to Darling Duckling. I think that's what it's called. So we've got a yellow. So here is Lemon Lolly, So Saffron, Daffodil Delight, Darling Duckling. So even between those two, you can see that there's quite a difference. Bumblebee, Crushed Curry, Wild Wheat, and Delightful Dijon. So even with the crushed curry, when you put it next to it, there is quite a difference. All right, so that is Darling Duckling. Okay, let's just get these back in order here. Okay, and then next one we've got is Timid Tiger, which is a fun orange. And let's slide these over. Okay, so here's Pale Papaya, Mango Melody, Timid Tiger, Pumpkin Pie. So those two again are very different. And Tangelo Twist. So again, quite different. When you compare the colors, sometimes when we see a color, we think it's going to be quite similar to another color that we've had in the past, but it turns out to be very different. Okay, and then here we've got Cloud Cover. Now, I do want to point out that all of these have been stamped with the coordinating inks. Cloud Cover, Stampin' Up! Had an issue with how the ink was settling. So the ink pad is not available, at least at the time of filming this video. So what I did was I used some Versamark and clear embossing powder to kind of give that look of it being stamped. And then I stamped on some Cloud Cover cardstock. Okay, so at the time of filming this video, I'm unsure when the ink pad the problem will be resolved and when it will be available. But there's always some creative solutions in the meantime. Okay, so there is Cloud Cover, Balmy Blue. Here's Seaside Spray. So again, a little bit more blue. That's a little bit more gray. Boho Blue. And then these ones are all very different. Tahitian Tide, Azure Afternoon, and Pacific Point. So Seaside Spray is probably the closest, but again, it has more blue undertones, whereas this has more gray undertones. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed a little peek at the 2025-27 upcoming in colors. And don't forget to hop along on the Global Stampin' Video Hop to see all the other new products that we are sharing along the way. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.